Hello everyone. In this very short video update, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the assignments that you had completed in the previous week. So I want to start off talking about the browsing communication research. Most of you were able to complete this and get it in on time. It's important that you're paying attention to those, and each of these assignments will build on each other. So if you missed that one for some reason, please don't make it a habit in the future. If it was reasons beyond your control, please get a hold of me via email as soon as possible. So the point of this assignment was to give you a chance to kind of look through what some of the scholars and researchers in the field of communication studies are publishing currently, so you can get an idea of the kinds of things that communication scholars are interested in, the topics that they're interested in. I also asked you to think a little bit about what you noticed when you looked through each of these journals. Also, one important thing is that practice of finding journals in the library database is very important as we move through the course and as you engage in other research and writing courses in communication studies. You'll find that one really fruitful area for finding good, high-quality, scholarly, academic journal articles is through the citations of the articles you already found. Oftentimes the easiest way to get to those articles is to just go to the library and look up the journal, then look at the volume and the issue number, and you can usually find the article that way. So I wanted this assignment to give you a chance to walk through those steps so that you can utilize that mechanism in the future. People did a very nice job of identifying some of the important commonalities as well as differences that they saw across these journals, and I just want to draw your attention to a few of those things. One, quite a few students mentioned recognizing commonalities in form. So I really liked this response from a student who said, "I noticed that a lot of articles took the time to try and highlight a problem, but not always to fix it." That is very, very common in communication research, actually in any academic research, is finding the solution is often left up to policymakers or other individuals, but that scholars are more interested and motivated by examining the problems. And so that's something you should kind of keep in mind. You might not always get a solution when you look at academic research, but hopefully you come to a better understanding about what the problem might be. Other students pointed to the extensive research. So unlike a popular press resource where you might not have any other studies cited or referenced, or where the authors may not have collected any of their own original data or constructed their own original argument, in scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals, you will, and the articles that are published in those, you will always see extensive research that's been done. So they will not only tell you what the problem is and cite other sources to help you do that, but they will also point out the method that they used to analyze the issue, to collect their own data and their own analysis of that information as well. Related to this is that most academic peer-reviewed scholarly journal articles follow a very similar format. So they begin with an introduction, they have a literature review, a methods section, results, discussion and analysis, and a conclusion or limitations. Not all authors will utilize the same headings, titles for the headings, but almost all will have those different sections in their articles. And lastly, I thought this particular student pulled out a really nice way of looking at it. They noticed that throughout all of these journals, the articles were original and scholarly, and offered a new way of looking at things with data or evidence to back it up. That is a perfect summary of exactly what defines peer-reviewed scholarly research. It is original, either an original argument or the collection of original data, It is scholarly in tone, meaning it's created for other scholars in the area, and it gives us a new way of thinking about a problem or an issue. This is never really just an opinion, even though in some of these articles they'll be presented as arguments rather than as sort of the collection of objective data. But they aren't arguments that can exist free from evidence. There always has to be used data or evidence to support a particular claim that's being made. Other students pointed out that there's, looking through these journals, they found that, really the communication field is widely varied. There are a lot of different topics that can be covered, and that is one of the reasons that I really like this field, and I think many of the professors that you may have like it, is that it is very interdisciplinary, and almost any topic, I like to tell students that almost any topic can be studied as a communication topic. You have to sort of tweak it and make it work within the field of communication, but you really can almost address anything you find interesting. But even though they're diverse, they also have common relationship. So this next week you're going to be looking at your own topic, and one of the things you need to think about is, well, how does it relate to some of the common themes of communication? Those themes tend to focus on issues of message production or meaning making, or even processes of interaction. So while communication scholars might look at a lot of different topics, they do so through the lens of message development or construction, either how producers create those messages or audiences receive them, meaning-making practices, how do we come to have particular meanings within society, or processes of interaction, asking about how different groups of people or individuals interact with one another in a meaningful way. Because these topics can be so varied, a lot of times they have a lot of relevance to current events or things that you might be interested in, although they'll be written for certain target audiences. So one of the things that several students mentioned noticing is that the different journals would have articles that seemed similar to one another, but that actually were quite different from one journal to the next. So this was purposeful as well. Public relations scholars will oftentimes write in a similar way and have similar kinds of topics, and that might differ than what film, video, and media scholars are doing. But regardless of where a communication scholar fits into this sort of spectrum of what they might study, issues of the media and the internet aren't only studied in film, video, and media studies. Those interested in public relations or communication and culture will also look at things like how social media or different kinds of communication technologies are shaping our contemporary moment. And oftentimes, as one student noted, the topics that are studied are ones that address controversial issues. Usually these are the kinds of topics that people are interested in and that are grabbing their attention, and so it's not uncommon to see some kind of controversy that is making its way into the scholarly journals. That's an important thing to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about developing your own topic. Are there contemporary issues, problems, controversies that have caught your attention in the last year? What are those, and how could you turn those into some kind of a topic for the study of communication? And the last thing I want to mention with this is simply a note about citations and assignment guidelines. There were a few people who had their citations perfectly done in APA style, but the vast majority still had a few little things that were wrong. A couple of things just to pay attention to or watch out for are that in APA style, when you write a citation, you use the initials of the first name rather than the full name. That when you capitalize article titles, it's only the first word in the article and the first word after the colon, and any proper nouns that are capitalized. Everything else is not capitalized. And in APA, we use a DOI number instead of retrieve from. If you cannot find a DOI, you can use retrieved from, but generally we preference the DOI number. If this is confusing to you, you still need some guidance. We're going to do some of that in the coming weeks, but remember that you have a guide in the back of the textbook that you were asked to purchase for this course. And then lastly is just make sure you're following directions. So the assignment directions oftentimes lay out a process, asking you to do one thing and then to do another thing in a particular order. I write the directions like this on purpose because I think that it's helpful to follow those in the order that they're laid out. So just make sure in the future that you're reading through those assignments carefully and that you're following the directions as they are issued. One brief note about the group discussions. I thought the fake news discussion went very well this week. Almost all of the discussion leaders created their discussion leader post in the allotted time frame. Remember that if you are the discussion leader, this will be listed under the weekly schedule, and you are expected to write your response to the discussion post by Wednesday to make sure that people have time to respond. And some really great questions were asked by the discussion leaders. I really liked that people were asking questions not only about the topic of fake news and how it is that we may or may not be very good at evaluating it, but also people asked great questions about the research itself. You know, did people look at adults versus children? Did they, ask the right kinds of questions? In what context were they constructing their research? These were really great questions to ask. In terms of the respondents, there were a few people who missed responding to the post this week. So if you have missed responding, please keep this assignment on your radar. The first response is due by Friday. The second response is due by Sunday. There were a few people who had missed the date. For this first one, I still gave full credits even if you were late. But keep that in mind for the future. Also, as I had mentioned previously, the discussion points are in one column, so it will look a little funky to you at this point in the semester. So I just want to give a highlight of how many points are possible so you can gauge where you're at with that assignment. You could have received up to 5 points for your introduction. If you were the discussion leader, you would have received up to 10 points for that. And if you were the respondent this week, you could have received up to 2 points. And so if you have been a discussion leader, the most points you can have possible right now is 15. If you have not yet been a discussion leader, the most points you could have had possible right now is 7. So I know it says out of 40, but really it's either out of 15 or out of 7 at this point in time.